What is up, YouTube? This is Zach, Dreamedia Home Theater. If you guys are not one of my subscribers already, make sure you smash that subscribe button down below and give me a big thumbs up on this video. Today, we're going to be discussing the Lumagen processor. It is the end-all be-all when you're getting into high-end video. You have to have these key components if you really want to maximize the potential of your systems. So I'm going to be bringing on today Kris Dearing, the #1 calibrator in the country and the guy who knows these Lumagen scalers inside and out. And we're going to be discussing some of the key things that you may not even realize are available within the Lumagen processor and why you might need it. If you guys have a high-end setup, primarily we're looking at like these Sony and JVC projectors, but you can use these for panels, all different types of setups. Regardless, we're going to go ahead and get into it with Kris. And I also have that home theater dude here on the line in a Zoom meeting, and we are going to give you guys the info. Let's get into it. All right, YouTube, we now have Kris Dearing with DeepDiveAV here on the Zoom meeting, as well as Kris, that home theater dude. And today we are going to be discussing the Lumagen. What is a Lumagen scaler and why do you need it? So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Kris Dearing.
Yeah, so the Lumagen video processor, the Radiance Pro, is essentially a toolbox. Everybody kind of talks about it as like oh, it's a video processor, it does this, it does that, or they focus on one particular feature of it, whether it's scaling, tone mapping, aspect ratio control, or whatever. But I always, when I talk to customers about a Lumagen, look at it as an all-in-one toolbox to fix different issues. Now, that could be something as simple as I don't like the way the picture looks on my TV, and the calibration prowess essentially of that display isn't really what it could be. The Lumagen offers a much more advanced calibration set of tools for somebody like myself to come in and work on a TV. That includes if we're talking the projector market, which is largely what we've kind of focused on when we've talked before. Most projectors nowadays for gamma and grayscale, they offer basically a 2-point grayscale and gamma adjustment where I'm taking like a wet noodle and trying to make it straight by messing with the edges of it. And then for color, you usually have one single point that pertains to any one color. So I'm trying to adjust all the saturation points of red with one point, so now that noodle is now one little point, and I'm trying to make that wet noodle the way it's supposed to be with one. So when you talk about things like that, if you add a Lumagen into there for calibration for grayscale and gamma, that 1 point now becomes a 21-point parametric. So now I can literally fine tune that whole noodle over 21 points and get it just perfect, essentially. With color, you can run what is called a LUT, which is what they use in professional like Hollywood studios and things like that for color correction. And at this time, you're looking at almost 5,000 points as opposed to 6. So it's a massive, massive improvement in what you can achieve from a calibration standpoint. But that is just one thing. So the next thing is HDR. Everybody's talking about HDR because it is now the new thing. 4K HDR is becoming prevalent in streaming, Netflix, Amazon, and everything else, Disney Plus. And it's also what we see in 4K Blu-ray now that's been hitting the market. So the problem with HDR is that it was an open standard that was basically given to the market by Dolby, and they basically gave them the most, the most basic form of it and said, good luck with that, people, and when you find out that it doesn't work, come back to us and we'll give you Dolby Vision. Well, unfortunately, the market decided, yep, we're going to go with that and we're just going to let it fly, and every display out there handles it in a different way because there's really no standard attached to that. Now you come into the projector market and it's even more difficult because HDR is based on the idea that you increase the dynamic range by having more light on the upper end without changing your black point. Well, projectors can't already get nearly as bright as most SDR content is mastered in, let alone trying to get out to 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 nits or whatever the content you're watching is. So Primarily the complaint is I watch HDR on a projector and it either looks wrong or it looks really, really dark. And that's because they're trying to essentially compress that into a certain amount of light that you have. Basically do an on-the-fly grade to whatever your projector's actual light output is. So the Lumagen's big claim to fame right now is the fact that it is one of the only solutions on the market today that offers a true frame by frame dynamic tone map. So it's optimizing on a frame by frame basis any HDR that you're watching to your display. That gives you a much better dynamic range. It gives you a much better picture that looks more like what you're used to seeing from your SDR content, where it looks bright, it looks punchy, and it has good contrast, not dark and dingy, and every once in a while something looks bright. So that's right now kind of the hot item with them. Obviously, they offer world-class scaling for any sources that are not 4K to go to your 4K display, or even stuff that's not 1080 to go to your 1080 display. And then another thing that's kind of never really talked about is the fact that they have outstanding aspect ratio support. So if you're somebody with a projector that has a scope screen as opposed to a 16:9 screen, most people out there today, if they have a scope screen, they're using a zoom method where they zoom the projector to fill the whole screen for a scope movie, then they zoom it to go to this ratio, then they zoom it to go to this ratio, then they zoom it to go to this ratio. And then that becomes cumbersome because, if you're somebody that watching a movie on disc, not a big deal. I zoom it and it stays there. But if you're watching stuff on like Netflix or things like that, where you're bouncing between content that's this aspect ratio, then this aspect ratio, then this one. And then I have menus that come up from the bottom, menus that come up from the top, and I can't see them because I've zoomed my projector.
Yeah, this is huge.
Subtitles.
Subtitles, all these different things. It just creates an experience that's taking you out of the experience all the time. And the whole point of all of this is you want to just sit back, relax, and enjoy it and have ease of use. I mean, anytime something doesn't work, it just takes away from your experience. So Lumagen has what's called auto aspect ratio support. So if you're using a zoom, you would basically, on a 235 screen, you would zoom it out to the full thing, set the picture up for that, and then tell the Lumagen, hey, I have a scope screen and I'm zoomed out for it. It will automatically change the aspect ratio of anything you're watching to exactly what it's supposed to be without you ever changing that zoom, and it does it instantaneously. So let's say you're watching a movie in full scope and you started the movie up and you're watching it on a disc, and you're like, man, this is one of those stupid discs where it defaults to the wrong language. It's not Atmos. I want Atmos, and it's in Dolby Digital. You click the menu button and it pops up from the bottom, but unfortunately that's off the screen because you're zoomed out. The Lumagen would see that that popped up, automatically go back to 16:9. You could change whatever you want. Menu goes away, boom, it goes right back out to scope. So there's no waiting. You can access anything you want at any time. The other nice thing about it is that, well, let's say you have a scope screen and it's like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. It's going to switch for me, whatever aspect I want automatically. But you know what? I bought this big screen and I want it to fill the whole screen all the time. You can even have it do that. You can just say, hey, I want it to stretch, and it does it without doing just a simple zoom where it just crops the top and the bottom. It intelligently crops a certain amount of the top and bottom and stretches the outside to try to make it where the image has as little image distortion as possible, yet still maintains that full thing. And you could even do this on a per input basis. So I've had clients that are like, look, when I watch movies from a disc, I want it to be exactly the aspect ratio I want. But when I watch cable, or I watch my Apple TV, or my streaming services, or whatever streaming device you have, yeah, I like the idea of it just filling up the screen, So I say, okay, well, we'll just set that up for that and this one up for that. And you can do it on any input to anything you want. So you can really tailor the experience to be exactly what you want it to be. And then there's other things that it does, depending on legacy devices where you need to have something that manipulates the EDID so that it works with newer displays because of all the changes that they've made to HDMI. Just lots of different things. You have two different screens. I have a lot of clients that have a 16:9 screen, and then they have a different scope screen that comes down, and they want to have a calibration that associates, or settings that associate with one screen or another. You can have it where it's just, just click memory A, that's that screen, memory B, that's that screen, and they're completely different setups, completely different calibrations or anything like that. Or a lot of people that have a screen that pops down in front of a flat panel, you can have the same kind of thing. The flat panel has one calibration, the screen has another. The only thing that the customer ever had to do is push one button and it switches between those. So there's a lot of different things that it adds depending on the complexity of the system and how easy you want to make it used. And then my goal as somebody who installs and sets up Lumagens is that, you know, it is a product that I've seen a lot of people intimidated by the fact that it does so much, and they get in the menu and they're like, I don't even know what most of these terms mean. So what my service offers is I'm pretty much a recognized expert on this product. I've even helped, you know, with Lumagen, you know, with a lot of the things that they've implemented on it. I set up the unit before it ever arrives in the house. So if a customer has a system and they want to add a Lumagen to it or whatever, all of the setup is done specifically tailored to their setup before the Lumagen ever ships. Obviously, I can do that on site if I'm at the customer's house for a calibration or something. But even if they wanted to add this to an existing system or, you know, get going right away without having to worry about, like, is somebody going to come out and install this? I can typically set it up so that it is configured perfectly, sans any calibration work, because obviously that requires, you know, measurement, whether it's done here in the lab, in a remote calibration, or on site. But as far as aspect ratio, scaling, tone mapping, all those things I can do so that it arrives at the client's door, they just plug it in, turn it on, and select an input. Everything else is done automatically. I give the client, you know, settings that they can use to make sure that whatever projector or display they're using is set up properly with the Lumagen. And I even usually include settings to use for source devices that are feeding it to make sure everything is going to work as easily as possible between them, so you get a great system synergy and the best experience.
Perfect.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's
I think what he's talking about is one of these right here. So we have the Radiance Pro 4242. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and showing you guys this one pretty shortly on the channel. He's talking about the Lumagen processor, and we have one of those, so we're going to be making videos very shortly with that. So I'm thinking I just have one question to ask Kris. Frame Adapt HDR, it's the biggest thing that is JVC's selling point right now.
Yeah.
Sony, Epson, you know, all the rest of some of the rest of the professional projectors, they don't have it.
Correct.
So the best thing to do is go ahead and grab one of these Lumagen processors. That way you get that experience on those things. I get it, it's an additional cost, but it's still a workaround that you still get that amazing movie cinematic experience.
Absolutely. And you know, a lot of the projectors you're talking about, you know, let's say I invested in a Sony projector in the last couple of years. You know, they make great projectors and stuff, but their HDR, you know, what they do with HDR leaves a lot to be desired. I have lots of Sony clients that complain about, like, yeah, the HDR just doesn't look right, but I love this projector.
Exactly.
Well, you can either invest in another projector, you know, and switch over. And really, like you said, the only projector manufacturer offering a dynamic tone mapping at this point in time is the JVC. Rather than you saying, like, okay, well, now I gotta replace that and everything else, you could add a Lumagen and essentially add that functionality on top of the other features that we talked about. So that would give them a route to go where they could do that, whether it's an Epson, a Sony, a BenQ, or many other brands that are out there. I've tailored these for lots of different setups. So it gives you an option without having to look at, like, okay, now I have to replace my projector or anything like that. Now, as for somebody that already has a JVC that has dynamic tone mapping, and I've written reviews, I mean, there are published reviews that I've done for Sound and Vision on those projectors. Their tone mapping is quite good. It gives very good performance. If I was to do a comparison of the two, you know, the JVCs and the Lumagens in a room with you, I could easily show where the Lumagen excels, where the JVC doesn't. But you are starting to talk about areas where it's like, you know, well, how often do those cases come up? It's like anything else. As you get higher and higher performance, it's really talking about the really troublesome things that come up every once in a while, not the mainstream, just normal, you know, content, stuff like that. So you're paying for it to really do its best at the most crucial, you know, at the most difficult scenes and things like that. The Lumagen is also customly tailored, so all of the input that goes into that is it knows exactly how bright your projector is and things like that. The JVC's tone mapping doesn't know how bright your projector is. There's no way for it to know that. So it has to make some assumptions on things, which is why they have different settings for like low, medium, and high, because they don't know how much light you have. So you kind of have to tell it, like, you set it up and then you go, okay, well, which one looks subjectively the best to me? Where the Lumagen is actually catered specifically to your light level and everything else. So so they are different. The Lumagen definitely has performance benefits in terms of the tone mapping compared to the JVC, but the JVC does do quite a good job for what it is.
So, awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, we're constantly on the search to provide that better experience to our clients, and this is exactly what we're needing. And having you on the team to be able to get those clients the maximum potential of the units that we're selling is exactly what we need. So I appreciate you taking time out of your day to give us all of this information. What's great is there's just so many little details in there that I didn't even realize that the Lumagen offers. And whenever they are purchasing this product, they'll be able to maximize the potential of every single feature in there with your services.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think just to go ahead and wrap this up, just the benefits. I know we touched on a whole lot of stuff. We kind of gave everyone the complete gamut of what the Lumagen does. But just to wrap everything up, so just the bullet points: no black bars. You don't have to worry about black bars ever again. So if that's something,
if you want them, you can have them. But if you don't want them, you don't have to have them. But
exactly. That's one of the key features, especially that I'm excited about. Another thing, no of those crazy expensive auto masking screens, so you don't have to spend the big bucks on that. This thing does it for you, pretty much in the same sense as the no black bars type of experience. And then overall,
we'll caveat that there for a second. It does. It is changing the aspect ratio by adding black, so it's making it framed properly. Obviously, the benefit of a true masking screen is that if you're doing it by video, you're limited by the black floor of that video. Obviously, if you're doing it with a true masking screen where it has black velvet, that's different. You're not going to see that black where you're limited by the black floor of your projector when it comes to doing it digitally, obviously. So just don't want anybody to think that one is the same as the other, because if you've experienced both, they're very drastically different. Even I have an actual variable masking screen in my room for the absolute best performance. So,
well, I think that's going to wrap everything up. That's mainly the key features on this one. Overall, you're going to get a better experience. I get it; it's a little expensive to go ahead and think about a processor, but I mean, if you're spending your hard-earned money on a theater, you wanna have things that work, and you want things to work a specific way. This is the way to do it. So I think that's really cool to be offering these things. I think it's a great idea that they're out there. I didn't know about them until a couple of months ago, until we had a conversation. So overall, I think it's going to be really good.
The biggest bullet I usually tell my clients is that it isn't just about getting the best image quality, which is, calibration, tone mapping, all these things we're talking about. It really also is just as important, again, the ease of use. The fact that you don't have to sit there and fudge with this and that. Why is it doing that? Oh, I'm zoomed out, or anything like that.
You want it to work.
For the most part, you're just going to sit back, press play, and let everything do what it's supposed to do, so that you can just enjoy it instead of futzing with the remotes all the time. That goes a long way. It actually, I know it's another component which would make you think that there'd be more to do, but it actually makes it less to do.
Yeah, whenever we spoke, I feel like that was definitely one of the biggest selling features, because our clients want these high-end products in their home, but they don't want to sit there and
juggle remotes.
They're not professionals. They just want to enjoy it. They want to sit down with their family, hit one button, and everything just works perfect, which is what we're here for.
Absolutely.
All right, cool, guys. Well, I appreciate your time today. I think that about wraps up the video. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Right on.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Pretty awesome, huh? Kris knows his stuff. And if you guys are just getting into home theater and you are wanting one of these high-end systems, give us a call and consult with us. We are becoming more and more of a specialist every day on these higher-end projection systems and screen systems, where we are really fine-tuning the experience to you guys. And bringing Kris on the team is just adding to that. We are making sure we're taking this home theater journey journey to the next level and delivering the absolute best experience to you guys. Well, that about wraps up why you need the Lumagen processor. If you guys are not one of my subscribers already, make sure you smash that subscribe button down below and give me a big thumbs up on this video. All right, till next time, this is Zach with Dreamedia Home Theater. Thank you for watching.